Right.
We're good. All right, well, I'm going to call this meeting to order then. This is the April 21st, 2025 meeting of the City of Lafayette Transportation and Circulation Commission. And I'm going to calling this meeting to order. It is right now 7 p.m. And I'll begin with roll call, starting with Commissioner Stella Weatherspoon.
Present.
Commissioner Greg Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Lynn Hedane.
Present.
Commissioner Michelle Sahar.
Present.
And I'm Chairperson Bart Carr, and I am obviously here and present. And we're supported by staff, Patrick Collier, who is the city's Transportation and Circulation Program Manager. So before we get into the adoption of the agenda, let me just read a couple of items. First of all, regarding video or teleconference access, members of the public may participate virtually in this meeting via video feed. However, the city cannot guarantee that the public access will be uninterrupted, and technical difficulties may occur. To restore, and every effort will be made to restore video audio access. However, unless required by the Brown Act, the Transportation and Circulation Commission meeting will continue despite technical difficulties, and in the event of a video interruption, members of the public are invited to join the meeting here in person. And then regarding public comment, I just want to remind everyone the public comment must be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission and can either be given for the items on the agenda at the time that item is heard, or during the general public comment agenda item for items not on the agenda. In-person commenters are asked to submit the blue speaker slips. I have one right now. And public comment is limited to 3 minutes. If a commenter reaches and exceeds 3 minutes, I will politely ask the commenter to conclude his or her comments. And so with that, those items out of the way, we are going to adopt the agenda. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
I so move.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And do we have a change to the agenda tonight?
We do have a change, so.
So let's back up this, let's back that up, because I forgot about that. Let's entertain the change and then we'll re-adopt the agenda with the change.
For item 6A, the TAR appeal for the crosswalk at St. Perpetua School on Hamlin Road. The applicant called me this morning and is not in town and has respectfully requested that I postpone this item to another.
6A.
6A, old business, 6A. So we're going to re-adopt the agenda with item 6A, the TAR appeal crosswalk to St. Perpetua School on Hamlin Road removed. Let me just quickly comment on this. This is the second postponement for this item. So, and which is fine. But when it's rescheduled, let's make sure we do it during a meeting that has a light agenda, not during a heavy one. Okay, thank you. So can I have a motion to adopt the revised agenda?
So
In a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So with that, we'll go into the general public comments for items not on the agenda. Do I have? This is this Glenside. Do we have any? Nobody else? Nobody online? Okay, well then we will conclude public comment and go into item 7A, which is 2024 traffic calming program, traffic calming project on Glenside Drive. Staff has two recommendations. Recommendation one is to construct one speed hump along Glenside Drive from St. Mary's Drive to Lafayette Moraga Trail. And the second staff recommendation is that the city council authorize, we will send our decision on this to the city council. And if it's an affirmative, the council will be asked to authorize funding for the traffic calming sinking fund to design and construct the proposed speed hump on Glenside Drive. So those are the two recommendations. I do have a meeting speaker slip here, but before we go on public comment on this item, we're going to have a staff presentation.
good evening. Commissioners, tonight we'll be discussing one of the two proposed traffic calming projects from the 2024 traffic calming program. Typo on the slide, apologies, it's 2024 traffic calming program. I just noticed that. Next slide. So the commission will remember that the Lafayette traffic calming program was updated in 2023, and the corresponding traffic calming guidebook was created at that time in order to describe the program's intent, including its goals and policies and the application process. Next slide. The updated program remains a resident-driven, application-based program that's designed to address speeding along residential streets with speed limits of 25 miles an hour. Under this program, projects are initiated by members of the community who identify concerns with speeding on their streets. And the application form is shown here on the right, and it requires a demonstration of community support for traffic calming on that block in principle. The total number of signatures are required from at least 1/2 of the distinct addresses on both sides of the block in question in order to be considered for traffic calming. And for this application, 82% of all fronting households provided a signature on the application. Next slide. So this is the timeline of the annual cycle for the traffic calming program as shown in the guidebook. So to date, for all applications received up to September 30th of last year, staff has collected and evaluated data for each of the streets, informed all of the applicants of the decision to accept or not accept their application to the program, determined the recommended traffic calming measures, and informed all households along the streets in question of the status of their projects. So after each project is brought to this commission, proposed projects will be brought to an upcoming city council meeting for final approval. And if approved by council, engineering staff will complete design and move into implementation this summer. Next slide. So that brings us to the project on Glenside Drive. So this segment of Glenside is the northern segment of the Glenside Drive loop between St. Mary's Road on the west and the intersection of Glenside Drive and Release Station on the east.
Which north and south, where are we? Or east and west?
Well, Glenside, this section runs east-west.
But which is which?
West is where the stop sign is, and on the left on St. Mary's Road, and Release Station Road is to the east.
North is at the top.
So the section under consideration is the western half ish of this segment of Glenside, shown in yellow, from St. Mary's Road to the crossing at the Lafayette Moraga Trail. And this section of Glenside Drive carries about 2,300 vehicles per day. There are no formal sidewalks except for on the short little bridge that crosses the Las Trampas Creek immediately west of the La Miranda Trail. And these lack of facilities is despite the fact that the road intersects with the Lafayette Moraga Trail to the east of this segment, where we have an existing raised crosswalk at the trail crossing. So here's a screenshot of Glenside Drive looking west towards St. Mary's Road from the approximate location of the proposed traffic calming project. From this location, excuse me, you can see the stop control at the intersection with St. Mary's. Next slide. And this is an eastward facing screenshot from the same location towards the Las Trampas Creek Bridge and the La Miranda Trail crossing just beyond the curve. And from here, you'll notice the reduced speed limit warning sign, warning drivers of the upcoming curve in the road. Next. So this table, which is also included in the staff report, summarizes the data that was collected for this street. So to review, data is collected on all streets on the same days and is collected for a full 48 hours on weekdays when schools are in session. So typically this represents a worst case scenario of traffic volumes and speeds. And the table represents data on this block of Glenside Drive. The address number shown on the table indicates where data was collected. Typically, this is done in the center of the block where vehicle speeds would tend to be the highest. In this case, data was collected near 3309 Glenside Drive in the approximate center of the block. The next column or set of columns are the 85th percentile speeds. You can see that eastbound it's 31 miles an hour and 33 miles an hour in the westbound direction at this location. And again, the speed limit on this street is 25 miles an hour. I've also included some other metrics meant to demonstrate the severity of speeding. So the next two columns show the percentage of vehicles traveling over 25 miles an hour in each direction and the percent of vehicles traveling over 30 miles an hour in each direction. You can see that almost 79% of eastbound traffic on Glenside is traveling over 25 miles an hour, with about 25% traveling over 30 miles an hour. And speeds are higher in the westbound versus the eastbound direction, with about 85% of westbound traffic traveling over 25 miles an hour and with 36% traveling over 30 miles an hour. So what is being recommended for this block of Glenside Drive is a speed hump. And as described in the traffic calming guidebook, speed humps are elongated vertical mounds that extend across the travel lanes in order to encourage slower speeds. These are photos of existing speed humps along Silveretto Drive and Burton Valley. They're between 3 and 3.5 inches high with a ramp length of 3 to 6 feet. 6 feet is the standard, and they extend across the vehicle lanes to the gutters. Next slide. So why are we recommending speed humps? In short, because they are the most effective and affordable means to promote consistent and slower speeds along a segment of roadway. And the next few slides will provide evidence from local studies to support this. So I'm pulling data directly from two recent reports. One is very local, the final evaluation study from the Burton Valley Elementary Traffic Calming Pilot Study. And the other is an evaluation study that I had conducted when I worked at the SFMTA in San Francisco. The San Francisco study included a larger number of speed humps in the sample size for the evaluation. And in addition, the San Francisco study included both a quantitative as well as qualitative analysis. Next. So the key findings from both studies are that speed humps are effective at reducing 85th percentile speeds while nearly eliminating egregious speeds over 30 miles an hour. Generally, speed humps did not result in any detectable impacts on traffic volumes. And so while it may not impact the number of vehicles using a street, studies show that they also are unlikely to create diversion onto other streets. And qualitatively, residents reported in a study conducted in San Francisco that speed humps either improved or had a neutral effect of quality of life on their block. When looking at Burton Valley specifically, speed humps were initially very controversial and polarizing. However, after implementation, about 57% of residents voted to keep them on their streets as part of a survey that was taken throughout their neighborhood in 2023. And this slide shows the results of one of the speed humps installed in Burton Valley on Burton Drive. The bar chart shows the percentage of vehicles traveling above the speed limit, both before the speed hump installation, that's shown in orange, and then afterwards shown in red. In addition, you can see kind of in the center of the slide, the speed humps resulted in a reduction in the 85th percentile speed from 34 down to 26 miles an hour.
Something to be proud of.
It is. Next. Okay, so going back to this proposed project, staff is recommending construction of one speed hump along Glenside Drive between St. Mary's Road to the Lafayette Moraga Trail. This hump would complement the existing raised crosswalk to the east, as well as the two recently constructed speed humps further east as part of last year's program to promote consistent and lower speeds along the entire corridor. Speed humps will be sited to meet sight distance requirements and will avoid overlapping with driveways and utilities such as manholes, hydrants, and water valves. And that's it.
Okay, so we're going to bring this back to the commission to have some initial discussions and questions for staff. And then once we do that, we'll have public comment on this item. So I have a couple of questions. Start out with me. is there a reason? This speed hump, I guess the request from the neighborhood came from after the request for the other speed humps. On the other side of, on further down
I
Glenside.
believe so. Yes,
Yeah, I mean, is there a reason why that wasn't all considered at once?
oh, because the application specified the boundaries of the petition, right? So, last year it was from Los Palos to Release Station was the application.
Okay. But the application received was for that specific section,
Yes,
and that's why that section was addressed last year.
right,
This is a different section.
Right.
Involving a different group of neighbors, right?
that's right.
Okay. And in the staff report, under the fiscal impacts, I was a little bit confused by this
Yeah.
because in the first sentence of that section, you indicate that sort of the cost now for speed humps is $8,000 per speed hump. But then you go on to say an additional 2 speed humps for traffic calming project on Glen Drive. I assume you mean
Yes.
Glenside? Or,
So that's another project and it's gonna be brought here in a future date.
okay, and Glen Drive that's
It's Glen Road.
Glen Road.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think maybe that's a typo because I was doing Glenside Drive
okay,
throughout the report.
okay.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, and that's a separate
That's a
request
separate-
and a
yes.
separate deal altogether. Is there a reason why you included that here?
I did
Just sort of
because I wanted to inform the commission of the status of the funding that I have for this program for this year.
Okay,
So you'll
Alright.
see there that these 2 projects will tap the traffic calming sinking fund.
okay. Does that mean we will not, aside from what we're doing tonight and these 2 Glen Drive,
Mhm.
or excuse me, Glen Road,
Mhm,
we won't see any more traffic calming this
Correct.
year?
mhm.
That's gonna be it,
That's it.
okay. Which, whatever, I guess that's what the fund can support, so, all right. I just wanted clarity on that. Those are all my questions right now. Any other commissioners have questions for staff? Yes, and
Yeah, is this the time? I'm assuming it isn't, but is it the time? I was hit on that trail right after I'd had back surgery. And by a junior high school kid coming home from school on his bicycle. I don't know what he was looking at, but it wasn't where he should be looking. But who do we address if we want that corrected? If we want to say, call out when you're passing, how do we call?
On the trail,
Yeah, do we call Lafayette because it's here? Do we call East Bay Regional Park District because it's their trail, even though I'm the one and Yvonne that got it done for us?
East Bay Regional Park has jurisdiction over the trail.
Okay. all right.
I was heading the trail too, and I
What?
called Lafayette Stanley. And spoke to the principal and he said he'd make an announcement over the PA, slow down and be careful of people.
And you,
That is true.
I
The
was hit,
schools-
a
the schools
kid
are
hit me
very
with
good.
his bike with his handlebars. And fell off the bike and the whole deal, and I called the Stanley, because I knew he was on his way to
you
Stanley.
called Stanley?
Yeah,
Ah,
and I spoke to I think it was the assistant principal.
okay, thank you very much, yeah.
okay. Any other questions for staff?
I have a question. So is there a reason why we're not putting the hump maybe even closer? So it does slow down closer to the trail? Cause I think I drive on that. I live in Burn Valley, so we go through on that and it's fast and there's not sidewalks so people are walking.
Yeah,
Is there a reason why we don't put this hump a little bit closer towards the trail versus having it?
We
there?
tried to get it, so there's a curve in the road,
Right,
right? So we need a certain sight distance from the curve so that
Okay.
drivers are aware of it as they turn around. So we tried to get approximately midway between the curve and the stop sign.
I see.
From the application, I believe, the complaints were that generally people were speeding as they were coming off St. Mary's and going eastbound.
Hmm,
That's what I experienced.
Yeah.
Because they're going so
Excuse me.
fast on St. Mary's.
This is our time for this.
Okay.
Okay, does that satisfy your,
Thank you.
okay, any other questions for, yes?
Yeah, just a question. Did you get more than 2 applicants in this
Yes.
cycle?
Mhm.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, we're going to go to public comment for this item. I have one speaker slip. If anyone else wants to speak, then please grab a speaker slip. For those that are here, this speaker slip is for Peter Thorold.
Carry on.
Terry, thank you, Peter.
Okay,
You can either sit or stand, whatever you want to do.
I'll say.
Okay,
I've lived there for 16 years and I have dogs that I walk down to the trail and there's no sidewalks there. And it just blows my mind how fast they're going sometimes. I've been to the police department maybe 2 or 3 times and called a couple of times. This one guy, I put my arm up because I didn't give him the finger or anything. I just put my arm up like, you're really gonna go by me that fast? He was in a big SUV. He slammed on his brakes. He started screaming and yelling at me, calling me obscenities, backed into my garbage cans, tipped them over. I was just fumbling, trying to get my phone out to get a picture of his license plate. I was too worked up at that point. So then I called the police and they apologized, but if I didn't get the license plate this time, so I could have kind of a history of just loathing how fast they're going. So I was the one who went around and got the names of everybody in the neighborhood, and they all agree with me that they feel the same way.
okay. Thank you. Do you want to?
No.
You're okay? Okay.
I would be in support of it.
Okay, all right. Do we have any commenters online that want to? No, okay. Then I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission for any further discussion, and then we'll take action on this. Any other discussion on this before we call a vote? I'm ready to call a vote on this, but I do want, following the vote, I want to bring up speed cushions. Okay, so with that, let me remind everyone of the 2 recommendations that we're voting on right now. And they are, again, the first recommendation is to construct 1 speed hump along Glenside Drive from St. Mary's Drive to Lafayette, to the Lafayette Moraga Trail. And the second is to recommend that the city council, once they receive this recommend to city council that they authorize funding for the traffic calming sinking fund, from the traffic calming sinking fund, to design and construct the proposed speed humps on Glenside Drive. So those are the items. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Um,
Aye.
Thank you.
This is going to be sent to the city council and they'll make the final decision. I assume they'll approve it.
Okay, great.
be sure you go, council meeting,
By what?
huh?
I'm sorry, Miss.
Be sure you go to the city council meeting, because even though we are approving it, you wanna go and have your say at the city council.
okay.
They're probably.
Will I get a notification of that meeting?
Will he get a notification?
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very
for
much.
coming.
Thank you.
I just want to briefly, just because this is, I think, a good time to revisit this. The idea of speed cushions. This came up when we were considering a traffic calming on Hidden Valley last May. And we were looking at speed humps and other treatments on Hidden Valley. And the question came up of why the city had not included speed cushions in the items that are included in the traffic calming guidelines. And at the time, I think you sort of agreed with that. In fact, the agenda action, the post-meeting agenda that documents the actions taken seem to indicate that you recognize the commission's interest in investigating speed cushions, and you're going to do that. I don't know if that ever happened. We haven't brought it up since then, but can you did you take a closer look at that and it's something that I think we ought to more carefully consider. So, but did you do anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with speed cushions only because we designed them in San Francisco and started installing them there.
Right.
They are not quite as effective. They are still effective at reducing speeds. In terms of the qualitative analysis in San Francisco, they are not as well accepted because people think that they're not as effective. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it on Glenside because the rest of the corridor has speed humps, and I think for consistency.
Right, and I didn't bring it up during the.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Right.
But if the commission believes that speed cushions should be the preferred traffic calming measure in moving forward, then can certainly consider that.
I went to the Caltrans traffic calming guidelines.
Mhm.
And they provide a very detailed description of both speed humps and traffic cushions and how they work, what benefits you get from each, and where it's appropriate to use each. As an example, it's more appropriate to use speed cushions where you have traffic calming needs, but there's also more traffic, more truck traffic,
Yeah.
and more potential traffic of emergency vehicles.
That's right.
So with all that in mind, I would like to take a look at it, not with the idea that we're going to completely drop speed humps and
Yeah.
go to speed cushions, but I'd like to, include speed cushions in the consideration when we do get these future requests.
And so for the benefit of the rest of the commission, if you're not familiar with what a speed cushion is, it's there are gaps in the speed hump. Generally, in San Francisco, we built them on certain corridors to accommodate the wider fire trucks so that they could drive through without the deflection. So that's what it.
But they're still raised and they
They're
still
still raised.
cause traffic, regular cars and,
Yeah.
to slow down.
Right.
There is a documented speed reduction as described in the Caltrans guide. So they do work.
Mhm.
You have to use more of them in succession on a longer roadway where you have speed calming needs. But they do work, and I think that there would be, and oh, by the way, they're cheaper to put in. They're less
How
expensive.
much cheaper?
I don't know, but it's everything. What I've read is that they're less expensive because they're basically pre-made and you just basically bolt them into.
Oh, you're talking about, okay. So in San Francisco, we built them and they're not cheaper because they require more labor to form the 3 lumps versus the 1 lump going all the way across. You're talking about manufactured.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we can make them too,
Yeah.
but what I was seeing in the descriptions that I looked at online were pre-made ones that you basically just, bolt into
the ground.
into the,
Yeah.
so, anyway, so if we can
Okay.
take a look at that,
Yeah.
I would appreciate that.
Can you bring one? Is it possible?
They're huge, they're big.
They're huge
Or are they that
Yeah.
big?
and we don't own any.
Mhm.
And Bart, are you thinking of these for particular roadways, not streets, but like types of roadway? Like why
Again,
those
there,
over speed
again,
hump?
busier streets, arterials.
Well, we wouldn't put any vertical deflection on arterials, period. Like that's a no-go.
Okay, well then no to arterials, but busier roadways that are part of our evacuation plans, route planning.
And arterials right now are Mount Diablo, Pleasant Hill Road, Moraga Road, St. Mary's Road?
I believe St. Mary's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe a few others like El
Yes.
Nido.
Oh,
and-
Pleasant Hill Road.
I think it's at Pleasant Hill, but
Yeah, okay.
El Nido up on the west side of town.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So not arterials, but busier feeder roads, so that kind of thing, so.
Mhm.
So anyway, it's just something I'd like to make sure we look at, because I think there may be some use for those going forward. So with that, I will conclude that portion of our discussion. And we don't have any more new business, so we're gonna go to item number 8, which is commissioner and staff updates. We'll begin with commissioner oral reports or updates. Does any commissioner have a update or report that they would like to make? No?
I could tell you that GPAC is currently on hold.
GPAC, I was waiting for that, yeah.
Again, or
Yeah,
still.
I don't recall now my last update, but one of the staff members who had been working with GPAC has left the city and moved on to become the planning director in Moraga.
Oh,
And so, until that position is hired, it's on hold.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Anyone else? No? Okay, staff reports or,
I don't have
Comments?
any reports.
okay. Well, with that, we come right to the end of the agenda, which is item 9 and adjournment. So if there's nothing else to discuss, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. It is 7:30. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.